Click the links to join the channel here at YouTube or over at Subscribestar. Check out the Odyssey and Rumble. They mirror this, and there's also other stuff over there and on Subscribestar. So as Adidas loses money after ending Kanye's deal, another company is trying to. So companies are having issue because they panicked over Kanye West being Kanye or whatever his new name is now. Now here's the thing: when I say the media is not the media, where if you, the best way to learn about what I mean by that is like go back 40 years and read newspaper articles, and then keep going back microfiche, decade by decade, and read articles, and you read it and you look up from the microfiche, you're like, oh dear God, we're headed in a very bad direction, because media always had a left-wing bias, at least after the 60s, the left-wing bias started to become more and more apparent. And before that, even then, it had like I would say a libertarian bias. Like I don't think the media has ever had a nationalist bias. But you can read the media reports like from the 80s, the 70s, and they were so radically different. That wasn't that long ago. To reports now that feel like just opinion pieces where they're not discussing what the issues are and presenting the issues and arguments on both sides and allowing you to reach your own conclusion, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. They're just presenting the conclusion. They're just giving you this wrapped up package because they don't want you to think. They don't want you to see both sides of an argument. In fact, it's amazing how over the past couple years, both sides of issues have not been presented. Only one side of an issue has been presented. Kind of weird and disturbing, actually, and kind of makes you distrust the media and the government, which is as well you should. And that used to not. Now that's a far right dog whistle to say you don't trust the media and the government. Where 20 plus years ago, that would have been openly a left wing position. Like, of course we don't trust the media and government. What are you, crazy? But it's weird how an incremental brainwashing and propaganda can change people, to get people to advance ideas that like 20 years ago they would have said were ridiculous, and now suddenly they're waving flags about these things. That you get the idea. So by this I mean the first sentence of this report is Kanye courted controversy. Okay, that's a fair. You've got facts and mostly facts, but then he says, when he made Islamophobic statements during a podcast, that's not an unbiased presentation of an argument or both sides of an argument or an issue. He didn't make Islamophobic statements. He made statements that some people might have interpreted as Islamophobic. Some have said, some opinions have called that. You have to present the statement in its totality and let the reader decide for themselves. That's what I mean. The media is not the media. The media wouldn't, a fair and impartial report wouldn't come out with a conclusion like that, which is an opinion, because you'd have to define what you mean by Islamophobic and precisely the elements and how they were of what Kanye's statement was and how it was interpreted in the totality of the circumstances. You'd have to have a very long discussion about how do you even define the terms and the defenses to both sides. They bypass all that and they just give you this conclusion of, oh, he made Islamophobic statements. You got to read that and realize they're not discussing the issues. They're telling you what to think about the issues. That's why I say the media is not the media. And to be fair, like the media is a dying beast because alt media is coming along and saying this type of stuff here, and it's can all be done with very small investment. And you look at the mainstream media and you go like, oh well, like the mainstream media is nothing more than lies, and it seems to be lies from a left-wing perspective. You might as well get some lies from a right-wing perspective, or at least try to get both sides of perspectives, both arguments. And the media is terrified that somebody might get both sides of an argument, because I remember it was only one of the girls at the Mary Sue was saying that about South Park. She goes, they present both sides of issues, but there aren't both sides of an issue. And I don't know who said that, Leishman or something, one of the idiots at the Mary Sue, and they're all idiots. And you look at her and you realize like they really believe that. They are the authoritarians. They are the totalitarians that only a few decades ago you'd be looking at them say this and go like, that's not a liberal value to not have both sides of an argument discussed. But that's where we are now. Anyway, so where was I? So Adidas and this other Kano Tech is dumping Kanye, obviously, and Adidas lost $500 million in lost Yeezy sales, and their stock is in trouble. And they're talking about these two companies. They say both companies are seriously in trouble because they had so much money invested in this guy. And it's weird the way the article is presented. Obviously, that first sentence is insanely biased and inflammatory, but they deflect from they start with Adidas and then they deflect from Adidas and go to Kano, which is a smaller company nobody's heard about. And then when they come back to Adidas, they let you know how serious the loss is for Adidas, which feels like they're trying to bury the lead, like Adidas is doing something very strange. In fact, the whole article is strange. The whole situation is strange, but they're just not gonna. They're doing a lot of deflecting, and then like that's what you see the media do a lot lately. Is they deflect and they present conclusions, and in fact, I mean, like the media's. I mean, this is nothing more than like what you'd expect propaganda out of China, Cuba, or Russia. So first of all, Ixnay on the comment section, Chicken Tendies looking at you. YouTube knows all the things. All it does is get the channel nuked. You can go to Odyssey, Bit Chute, Telegram to make those comments. But yes, all those dog whistles, YouTube is well aware of. So it seems like we're in this time of people having conversations and making reasonable comments, but the response is other people flying off the handles and canceling them, even if it costs them, in this case, billions of dollars for both parties involved. You saw it with Kanye, Kyrie, Nick Cannon, Scott Adams, and countless of others people. Apparently, we don't live in as tolerant a time as we assume. The liberal democracies turn out to be not so liberal, because true liberalism means freedom of speech. It means having that open marketplace of ideas and not just getting triggered and censoring and deplatforming. That's authoritarianism. It's like, yeah, the liberal left is not the liberal left anymore. All that ended at least 30 years ago. Anyway, it's weird. It's as if we really don't have free speech because billion-dollar companies actually control the country in every aspect of our life. It'd be sweet if our politicians did something to protect free speech across platforms, but don't hold your breath. So Kanye is some sort of rapper, which obviously is mostly cancer, but really almost every modern music is absolute cancer now. But Kanye seems to know. I think I heard one song that was okay, and I guess for modern, if you like modern stuff, I guess it's okay. But I mean, really, it's like go back and listen to stuff pre-1990s, because I feel like rap kind of died in 1990s, and rock kind of died in 1995. After that, it felt like everyone had become such sensitive skirts. I mean, like, what happened to punk band? I'm trying not to say the P word, but what happened to punk bands is it is like just pathetic to see punk bands become such skirts, and like they change their names if it's offensive to somebody now. Raging for the Machine, sponsored by Bank of America, working with the FBI and their fans to track down mostly peaceful protesters for J6. Like, so you're the left wing, and those are protesters who were at the government seat of power, speaking truth to power. Yeah. And you're the left wing and you're working with the FBI to put these people in prison for 2 years. That's weird. Do you think you got subverted and corrupted? Because this isn't the left wing. So the band's called Rage Against the Machine and you're working with your fans to track down the people to turn them over to the FBI? Are you the baddies? Yeah, you're the baddies the whole time. So the entire left wing has kind of shut off their brain and allowed themselves to be governed by big corporate NGOs, and they're just fine with that. I mean, that's what's incremental brainwashing looks like. The left wing is lockstep in accord with social media companies and Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, Bank of America, MasterCard, and all the payment processors. And they have their pride parades sponsored by Bank of America and Soros, and they never stop to wonder if they got subverted. Yeah, what happened to Occupy Wall Street? I remember in the 80s when I Used to Love Her, that song came out, and the Soy Boys of the 80s were whining about that. We just couldn't believe that anyone would publicly admit to being such giant bleeding pussies. And I think it's just lack of self-awareness, or they're so deep in this soy echo chamber that they don't know how normal people perceive them. Anyway, so Kanye makes expensive tennis shoes, which actually I assume now have gone up in value. And if you'd like to send a pair to my mailbox, it's listed in the description, 11.5, because I feel that wearing them now is a cool far-right dog whistle, because Kanye is now a far-right figurehead, which is a pretty welcome and diverse far-right wing. Does it make sense? Doesn't have to make sense. And no, I'm not going to hold my breath on those Yeezys. Kanye made some comments on a live stream about the weirdos in the music industry and his personal trainer, Pasternak, who threatened him and his kids. The things Pasternak said were the real issue, but everyone just kind of skipped over it. So I guess it's some sort of, Mark CIA ultra programming sort of thing that'll get you Epstein if you look into it too deeply. I'm sure the media will look into that just as hard as they looked into Epstein's client list. So it's probably not a good idea to dwell on Pasternak because he's got that blackmail, untouchable energy to him. When did it become okay for personal gym trainers to threaten people like they're secret agents, like they're untouchable? Probably when they're actually untouchable secret agents. Kanye was doing interviews talking about industry insights. I mean, to publicly threaten somebody on your instant messaging program, it's like anyone could the other party can screen cap that, record it, and to know that you're so untouchable because you're working for an agency that the media is not gonna get involved in. That's interesting. Anyway, so Kanye is doing interviews talking about industry inside stuff and letting off steam. It just wasn't a big deal. But then suddenly the companies that were dealing with him panicked and tried to cut ties as fast as they could because I assume their contracts had provisions for things like this, or even if not, they figured it'd be cheaper to pay damages for breach than the bad publicity. Except that was the weird thing, was that there was not a whole lot of bad publicity. The truth of the matter is most people just didn't care. Everyone understands that Kanye is letting off steam. The guy makes music. I'm sure some of it's good, and he sells an expensive clothing line. But who really cares about his opinions? He's in terms of entertainment, going on these interviews. Okay, it's great. It's entertaining interview. It's entertaining, but it's I don't know how he got so big. He's some kind of musician, rapper, right? But it's he's not a rocket scientist. He made a lot of money selling music and selling clothing, but he's no Louis Pasteur or Linus Pauling working on vitamin C, or didn't he get 2 Nobel Prizes for vitamin C, something weird? He's not a rocket scientist. He's just a guy who makes I guess okay music. But I mean, if you look at the audience now that listens to music, it's most of them are probably legally developmentally disabled. I mean, probably under to left of the bell curve. So it's gotta be careful. It's like being smartest kid on the short bus. Can I say that? I mean, you're selling to a really dumb crowd. It's like they gave you money, but I mean that doesn't. It doesn't say how great you are. It more says how corrupt the society is that you can raise someone like that to be a billionaire. And it's I want to hear his opinion. I think he has got all the right in the world of free speech for sure. And I was surprised that so many people wanted to censor him and deplatform him. Don't say anything in the comments, which is that's the real issue. Is why we didn't take him seriously. So why are you taking him seriously? That was kind of the weird issue. He makes music. The weird thing was how companies just panicked, and I feel like he's going to point to his eyes and goes, "Look at me, I'm the captain now." And then these companies just canceled everything, except they didn't do a whole lot of thinking about it. He's selling these Yeezys. It's a pair of shoes that are probably made in China, probably for $30, right? And then the markup is to $600 to $1,000. But they've got the shoes, and suddenly they're like, "Oh, do we take the Yeezy sign off them because that's an endorsement of Kanye?" It's so now we have these $600 shoes without his name brand on them, because most people still really like Kanye. In fact, more people like him now. Barely even heard of him before. He was just some weirdo who was he made that comment about Taylor Swift, and you're like, oh, this guy's an idiot, which he probably still is. And then before that, Hurricane Katrina, George Bush. It's George Bush doesn't care about sun people. It's okay. I mean, there's more. I mean, really, you want to learn about Hurricane Katrina, you go watch Black Pilled's video on Odyssey. I'm sure you could find it. Or I could probably find it for you and give you the link. It's a fascinating video about that. Anyway, my point is that Adidas has got these shoes. So how do we sell them for $600 if they don't say Yeezys on the side of them? Again, you can send me a pair in my mailbox. Drop me an email first so I know to go check it out. I will proudly wear those Yeezys instead of my old Birkenstocks, which are actually falling apart now. But Man, Birkenstocks last a long. They're delaminating now, and they're slowly falling apart. I did super glue the treads had fallen off. I just super glued them back on. They work great. I walked these things in the rain and in the snow and like everything. No worries. Those things are just bulletproof, and I wear them with socks all the time, black socks, all the time. Anyway, so Adidas is actually in financial trouble, like to the tune of $500 million. And you're looking at it like, why did you overreact like this? He just made some comments. He's just some idiot letting off steam. For sure, he's got the right to free speech, but it's like, why did you panic? And to the tune of where you're losing $500 million, and now your stock's in trouble, and the whole company's in trouble. $500 million is a respectable amount of money, and you're also hurting your brand because there's a lot that goes along with it. Like, it's just Kanye and his comments are not a big deal either way, but apparently they're a big deal to this Kano tech company. They're probably making speakers and music and amplifiers and crap like that. And then Adidas shoes and clothing brand. It's like, don't you think maybe you blew this all out of proportion? No, apparently not. But I mean, their stockholders are finding out. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, join us over at Subscribestar, and I'll see you guys all next episode.